Building an artisan business is meant to be fun. It's meant to be creative. But often, when we're juggling lots of responsibilities, aka a full time job, or perhaps family, or life just in general, or kids, that creative business can actually turn into something that's really putting you on the brink of burnout. So, in today's video, we're going to be talking about really looking out for the signs of burnout and working out ways so that you can avoid getting onto the absolute point of no return, but also ways that you can actually keep on growing your business without being in that absolute stress mess. My name's Lena Broughton, and I'm the very proud owner of Madeit.com.au, where we have over 800 incredible artisans selling their beautiful creations through the marketplace. And if you're not already selling on Madeit, or you haven't already heard about us, I'd love to invite you over to come and check us out, not only for selling through the platform, but for the bevy of masterclasses that we've created to make your journey with selling online that much easier. This isn't meant to be hard. It's meant to be simple and straightforward, but also you don't need to feel like you're doing it alone. Come over and join our incredible community. I think burnout is kind of a buzzword that we've heard floating around a lot, and there's different stages of burnout as well. And you may have experienced some or all, or be currently experiencing burnout. And it's really real. And for anyone who is going through it, honestly, I see you, and I hope that you're working out ways to actually manage your way through it. Because I know that when I hit that point of burnout and absolute exhaustion, I really didn't even know that I was in that point. And look, maybe that's you, but when I sold my business, my fashion business, it had become so stressful, and to the point that I really wasn't enjoying it at all. But I just saw it as, oh, things are going on in the business and that's not right. But actually, my body had been telling me for a really long time, hey, you've taken on too much. This isn't what you need in your life right now, and it's time for you to make some really key decisions. Now, as it was, I made those key decisions without even realizing I was in a space of burnout. But I guess I'm sharing this for you to be able to look at where you're at right now and make sure that you're managing your stress levels. Because everything that we're going through, it all starts in our mind, right? And it might end up presenting in the body, but it's actually in the mind where all of those stress indicators and those stress levels, it's like they start to stack, and it's like they're becoming, that wobbly little leaning tower of Pisa, right? But in your mind, and it's often combined with like a tornado effect that's running around, so that the emotions and the thoughts and the feelings are all rushing around, rushing around, while you're sort of balancing like this, trying to keep it all together. So, in order to be able to assess where you're at right now, one of the key techniques that I've found has been really helpful is learning how to become the observer. And the whole idea of being the observer, or becoming the observer, is that you're able to look at things from an outside perspective and look in. Because when we're stuck in a stress mess and we're literally just coping and teetering on the edge, or perhaps not at all and completely frazzled, we often can't see out beyond that. But when we're able to actually take a step back, and that can be a metaphorical or an actual step back, right? But when you can actually take a step back out of the situation, out of your life, and then look back in and be able to recognize what's going on in the different parts. Because what I was saying about those stress levels stacking in our mind, right? The same thing often happens in any situation that we're in. So let me give you an example. I know many artisans, this might be you, don't love social media and don't love the fact that they've got to be in there so deeply, when often all they want to do is craft, right? Or all they want to do is make. But it is an important part of building a business, especially in this day and age. But we can jump to the conclusion that we actually hate everything about social media. Now, it's pretty unlikely that that's actually true. What it will more likely be that there'll be certain aspects of social media that you perhaps find challenging, or that you really honestly don't love. And I get it. I totally hear you. But it's also good to remind yourself of some of the positive aspects of that area. So I know that within our community, we have a private Facebook group for our artisans. And And it's a really beautiful space to share some of those wins where sometimes it doesn't always make sense to share those out in public, right? Let's say if you've had a sale that you didn't know who the customer was, or perhaps you've had a little flurry of sales and you want a space where you can high five everyone and say, oh my goodness, I'm so excited, this is amazing. Or perhaps on the flip side, it's like, oh my God, what am I doing wrong? Then that's a space where you can do that. So I know that many artisans actually really enjoy being able to be in that space. So, and look, I'm just using this as an example, but the idea is, again, like I said, that when you're able to become the observer, you can actually pull things apart. Like if you imagine that your life's a great big jigsaw puzzle and, you're working in one corner and it just seems like nothing's coming together. And it's really good when you can actually take a deeper look and go, well, hold on a second, some parts are working really well. And I can start to see very clearly the areas that aren't. And this leads into the strategy that I have for basically any part of business, but it's SSC, and that's specifics, getting specific, building a strategy, and then staying consistent. And that's just an easy way for you to think about it as well. And when we're talking about becoming the observer, when we're talking about looking and seeing what everything that's happening in your business, but also in your life. That's those specifics, right? And attached with that is getting really clear about what it is that you want to achieve. Because I think that when we say, oh, I want to have more sales and I just want to have more sales, well, what does more sales mean? Does that mean one more sale? Or does that actually mean more profit, right? So being able to get specific can actually help calm down the nervous system. And when you're really frazzled, which is when you're starting to get into that stress mess and onto that edge of burnout, it's like slow down, just slow down, take a couple of deep breaths, close your eyes if you can. I always find closing your eyes helps to center you a little bit, but go slow down, close your eyes and go, how can I look at the specifics of a situation? And there's a bit of an add-on to that as well. And it's about looking at the specifics of a situation, but also without the emotional attachment, like not making it into something bigger than it actually is. And if you're in a place where you find that you often do make things bigger than what they are, or perhaps you loop on them for hours and hours and hours, that can also be a really strong indicator that you're in a bit of state of stress. I think when we're talking about, wanting more sales or wanting to be in a different part of the journey from perhaps where we are, there's two elements that often trip us up in this area. And the first one is the comparison, because really, like when we say that we're not where we want to be, it's often about I'm not where I want to be compared to where others are. And that's a really slippery slope to go down to. And it's one that can continue and sort of take flight really quickly or start to slide really quickly, whichever way you want to put it. But if you're feeling like you don't have enough, or you're not doing enough, or you're not getting enough, then of course that all results down to I am not enough. And I think that if you're feeling that way, it's very normal. I go there multiple times, not multiple times a day, I wouldn't say. I've learned to sort of tame that beast, but also I've tamed that beast by having a few practices and methods in which when I can see it's coming up, when I can see that I'm getting that feeling of not being enough, that's when I know that it's time for me to have a little bit of a break off social media, but to just go, stop comparing yourselves to others. Like, you don't really know what's happening in someone else's world, and whatever they might be sharing, you think, oh gosh, why aren't I doing that? Why aren't I there? But they won't be sharing a lot of the parts that actually are the reasons for why they're there, whether it's how long they've been doing it, or even perhaps what sacrifices they're needing to do to get there. Because each one of us have our own worlds, and each one of us have the ability and the option to make our decisions about what's going to work for us. And you need to find what's going to work for you. And it's a big part of avoiding burnout, that you're not trying to live someone else's journey, that you're just keeping your eye on the journey that you're on and the journey that works for you as well. And the other part that I find that trips us up is time. You know, I think in this digital world where everything is so fast, right? We're used to everything coming in as soon as we want. If we need to find an answer, we can jump on Google, we can find it straight away. You know, I know that when my internet is slightly slow, I'm like, oh my God, it's so slow. And it's like I completely forget that I've actually only had this speed internet, you know, for the last 3 months. But all of a sudden it's become my new normal. And what happens is that whatever experience we have in one part of our life, we expect that to be the same across all areas. And it's a little bit conceptual, but if you can imagine, like if we're expecting, like things are really fast on social media, well, we expect things to be really fast in our handmade artisan business. And I know, you know, that what you're creating cannot be created at that speed, right? And therefore the results can often not be created at that speed as well. But also, when it comes to time, it's like we have an idea in our heads based on other people's stories about how long it's going to take without taking into consideration all of the moving parts that are going to affect the time frame in which you're able to achieve things. So the first question that I would put to you is, what if you removed comparison? It's a two-part question. What if you removed comparison? And what if you removed the element of time? How would you feel about everything? What if you could remove a little bit of that urgency, right? Because even though I'm sure that you want to get things done in a certain amount of time, but the whole world's not going to come to an end if you don't get it done in that time. Now, if you've got customer orders and you're like, I literally cannot fulfill these, right? It's not going to happen. I'm in a bit of stress mess and I can't get these orders made. Let's say if it's a custom option, it's okay to reach out to the customer and say, I'm so sorry, but you know, some things have gone on in my personal world and I'm not going to be able to achieve these. And of course, that's not the target, right? That's not what we want to do going ahead, but actually allowing yourself a little bit of grace to say, you know, if things come up and I'm not coping right now, it would be much better for me to be really honest about that and, you know, approach it in a really kind and open and authentic way. And perhaps you'll actually make a connection with that customer that you may not have otherwise made as well. So take out those ideas of comparison and time and have another look at how the stress is presenting. The word strategy can be a really interesting one, especially when we're saying business strategy, because with the hundreds or thousands of conversations that I've had with artisans, is that actually recognizing that what you're doing is a business and recognizing on top of that that you're an artist and also that there may be a strategy that's needed. Those are all words that can often like create a little bit of friction internally, and it leads into that whole idea of imposter syndrome. And I'm not sure that I really believe in imposter syndrome, but what I do believe in is the fact that we can get ourselves into that point where we don't feel enough. All of those things come back to not feeling enough. And again, remove the comparison. What if you're not comparing yourself to others? Then all of a sudden you are an artist, you are a business strategist. And being a business strategist means simply being able to come up with a plan that's going to suit your business to move forward to get to the goals that you want to achieve. And strategy for me looks really simple. I guess I always like to find the most simple and most practical and most direct path as well to get to where I want to get to in business. And that strategy for me is first and foremost, of course, you want to know whereabouts you're headed or where you'd like to head. And then the next stage is understanding how much you're able to give into the business to be able to get there. And when we say give into the business, there's a few different areas, but energetically, of course, if you know me and you're here watching videos again, you know I'm a big believer in how our energy affects our outputs, but also what we get in return as well. But also your time, you know, if you're someone that's working full time, or perhaps you've got young children, or perhaps you're caring for elderly parents, then you've got real responsibilities that may take up a big chunk of your time. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to have more time in the future, but it means right now, the time that you have to put into growing the business may be quite finite. But the more that you can be specific about it, the more that you're actually able to use that time more wisely, because that's the next part of the strategy, is then understanding, once you know what time you've got, what energy you've got, what money you've got to put into it as well. That's the other resource. But then you can work out, well, then how am I going to best use all three of those, right? And interesting, energy is something that you don't often see on a strategy, but you might see it, I guess, in a more personal way. But it's about, what are the things that you're really great at? And if you're here, I know it's that you're amazing at making and creating your beautiful creations. And the really, I don't even want to say this, but the harsh reality of business is that actually making your creations ends up being quite a small part of it. And that marketing and promoting to be able to sell those creations often overtakes the input of creating. But there's ways that you can make it work for you, so that, let's say with creating and using marketing as an example, you being able to film what you're doing behind the scenes is a really great way that you can actually be creative, but also filming the process so that you can share that process, and which in turn will help sell what it is you're creating as well. But with your time, you want to make sure that if you've got a few time slots throughout the week, like let's just do a scenario. Okay, let's say you're working full time and you're like, I've really only got 2 nights a week where I've got an hour and a half that I can work on stuff. And maybe you've got a 6-hour block on the weekend, and that's really your time limit that you've got. Then let's make the most of that time, because when we're stressed, when we're in that, kind of frazzled energy, often even when we want to be working on our businesses, we go in and we spend the first 20 minutes trying to work out what to do, and then we end up working on something completely distracting. So having a clear plan for how you're going to actually spend that time each week, in what specific areas of your business that you're going to be able to put time into, right? That's going to really help you not only plan your week, plan your month, but also get better results. We don't want to spend our precious time actually wasting it as we head into it. And once we've got a plan for how we're going to use the time and where our time is best spent, that's where we can become consistent. So an example of this is, there's and you would have heard this about going to the gym. If you go, I'm going to go to the gym 1 hour every day. Now, I don't know many people, including my very health conscious friends, who are able to achieve a full hour at the gym every single day, right? It's actually unlikely. So you want to set goals that, of course, they stretch you a little bit in what you're achieving, but that you're actually going to be able to achieve them, and then you can start adding to them. So maybe for you, if you are someone that perhaps doesn't love social media, maybe you're going to commit to doing half an hour a week on social media with a plan, so that you're getting great outputs, but that's going to be your time slot. And you're not going to be posting every day, right? If this is you, you're not going to be posting every day. And honestly, we don't even post every day. It's about quality over quantity and consistency over quantity, right? You would be better to have 1 day or 3 days ideally where you go, hey, here are the time slots and these are the points that I'm posting and that I'm going to be online to engage. And those are the spots that I'm going to stick to. But again, if you're just starting out and you're like, I can commit to once per week, that is amazing. Now let's get consistent. Same day, same time, every week. So make sure that you're taking the time to see where you are now. Make sure you're taking the cues and recognizing if you're starting to go into that stress or frazzled or anxious kind of space. And then make sure as well that you're going to that next stage of the SSC, right? Get specific. Get a strategy, get consistent. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. There's new videos coming out each week, and I'd really love to connect with you. So pop a comment down below and let me know where you're at the journey. I'm really keen to hear from you, but also whereabouts you are in the world. Bye.